Moral courage is very important in the complexity that we're confronting in the world at the moment. And this in part is for a number of reasons. You know, we're in a world of fast changing technology and also alternate truths and all. And to be a leader at this point, you need courage, moral courage, to really be able to navigate it. It's not only about what the popular view may be at this point, and you go along with that view. It's also to raise questions about the intention and outcome. What do we want to change? We talk about inequality in South African society. So what is it that we must do to deal with this issue? We talk about unemployment. So what are the answers that we can put on the table? And for that, you need moral courage. You need the courage to come up with answers that may not always be to the satisfaction of everyone, but looks at dealing with a problem at hand. You know, the biggest challenge we face in South Africa as leadership is that there's a trust deficit. You know, a lack of trust by ordinary people in government, a lack of trust in politics and representatives who are supposed to be there for the people. And we need to look at how we're going to overcome that. And the best way to do that is to rebuild that trust. In my lecture, keynote address this morning, I made a reference that there's a need to rebuild trust in society through dialogue. And that's because people have almost fragmented into groups that are quite cynical about what can be done. And I think the only way of rebuilding it is when each and every one of us say, we are going to make a difference where we are to make something happen. So I also made a reference this morning about the importance of an MBA. And I said the MBA is not just about the individual climbing the ladder, but it's about the many ladders that you will put up for everyone else. And that is also and will contribute towards rebuilding trust. You know, you've got to be accountable. So if you're in a municipality that can't provide water, you must go out and communicate. Explain why that's not the case. But you also first and foremost need to ensure that you have the capacity to resolve particular problems. So maybe I should start out by saying one quality that people seem to have lost is listening. You've got to listen, because in listening you'll also be able to find solutions to particular problems. So accountability, integrity, honesty, and this is where I went to the whole point of systems thinking earlier this morning. You know, make linkages between what's there. You may not have the answers, but reach out to the right constituencies. If you in local government, look at the private sector within that community who can contribute. Look at the universities in your area and see whether they can support you in solving a problem. Look at retired expertise that you can bring in if you have absence of capacity in those areas. So I was focusing on local government right now. But I also want to take that further and say at national government level, it's also a need for humility. But it goes back to the first point I've raised, is the issue of moral courage. How many of us have the moral courage to lead in a complex world where there's ever-changing realities, and there's also a situation where there's, let me call it, alternate truths, and you need to ensure that you're accountable, you communicate, you're honest, but you have moral integrity, and you have the capacity and are drawing on the correct collectives to help people and communities. You know, I did the SAFM lecture last year, and in that lecture I said we must all be builders, we must be plumbers, we must be doers, people who are really ready to change things, small things and big things. And I'll give an example, and it's a very simple example. I said we've got very high levels of youth unemployment in this country. And maybe we should start looking at what are the solutions that will make a catalytic difference. And maybe one, so I'm not necessarily answering the call to the nation, but I'm first addressing it to Northwest University. And maybe one of your MBA groups should look at what is that solution that may, on a more mass scale, result or ensure youth employment. So I sort of spoke about the issue of voluntary national service. And the purpose of that is to skill young people, because at the end of the day, many young people can't get jobs because either they don't have the academic background or they don't have the skills. And if they do get the academic skills, they don't have the experience. And we should develop a space where we can engage tens of thousands of young people. So my message to the country at this complex moment is, how are we all going to contribute, firstly, to make a difference, to unite the country, and get the public, private sector, civil society, which includes the interfaith sector, to come together and say we must find solutions to our problems. But to do that, we must talk. And that talk needs an honest national dialogue, where we don't only identify problems, but we find solutions to it. Solutions to our energy challenges, solutions to our water and sanitation challenges, solutions to our logistic challenges, but to mention a few. And we're working on some of that, but we need to take it to scale, because time doesn't wait for us.